Hi, Michael Bettine here once again for It's Cuppa Time. And tonight's episode, I'm going to revisit a couple of recent themes and hopefully clarify a few things. And I'm also going to look at something new that has come across the radar this week. So first, I've got some notes here so I cover everything. I want to just touch again on certificates because people have had a lot of questions on my recent video on certificates and certification. I just want to clarify that I am not against giving out certificates, participation certificates, to say, yes, I was at that weekend workshop, that week-long workshop, whatever sort of thing. And I understand that for a lot of people, it's necessary to get that piece of paper, to get like continuing education credits or some sort of credit towards a license or certification they already have, where they have to have continuing education. So in those cases, you need to prove you were at the workshop or camp or whatever. So getting a piece of paper that isn't more or less an attendance certificate is important, and I'm certainly not against that. And just to reiterate, the thing that I'm really not for is certification from some uncertified body. It would be easy for me to hold a weekend workshop and give out a certificate that certifies you as a gong master or a bowl master or a sound master or something based on your 2.5 days of work. And what is my certification? Why should you believe me? That's the problem with many of these papers that are more certification for people, is because, well, what's backing it up? There is no global gong, or even in most places any sort of a national sound healing therapy gong bowl sort of committee that can set standards and all. So there's been a lot of lively discussion on the internet and other places now about that, and I think it's a good thing to keep talking about. And I think it's an important thing that we as gong and bowl players should continually police ourselves and the people that we know and work with. Let's keep it all honest here, okay? It's just, again, you can't take a course for 3 days and be certified as something. It's just not possible. You can learn ideas in 3 days, but you then need to go practice these ideas for a length of time to even begin to understand these ideas. It's just like anything in school. You learn in the class and then you go to apply them. It'd be like carpentry. I could show you how to use a hammer and a saw and nails and cut wood and measure and all that, and then give you a certificate and you go home. But that does not mean you could build furniture or a house or anything. You would have to go and actually start making things and apply the ideas and principles that you learned in a carpentry class. So it's the same here. Whatever class, workshop, camp, whatever you go to for sound with bowls or gongs or whatever, get the ideas, learn them, but then you need to take them and put them into practice and work on them. So that's all I was saying in that video, is there's a big difference between attendance and participation and actual certification. All right. So comment down below, whatever on this one. Let's move on. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is in a recent video, I was speaking about mallets and how I really prefer to use pretty traditional, heavy sort of symphonic gong mallet. And what it is, this is a Balter GM2, which is no longer made. Get a little closer here. And you can see it's got a really big head. And what I like about this one, it has a very flat surface here. So I have about 3.5 inches of actual striking area that's going to come in contact with the gong. And this is very heavy. It's about 583 grams, which translates into about 1.14 pounds. So this is a weighty mallet. Now, in the previous video, I was talking about how someone was saying that they see all gong players using symphonic mallets, which are designed to get a really big sound and, played this way. Usually in a symphony, the gong is down here, and then you're swinging at it like this to get the big crash. And normally it's a swing like that too. Like you're playing tennis or something, you're doing a big serve. So they were saying that, we need new types of mallets that are lighter because we don't bash the gong, which is very true, and I never bash the gong. But what I like about this one is it has a lot of weight to it. So to me, I find it easier to open up a gong even at a very quiet level. So this is what I normally use, except I've modified the one I play all the time. And what I did, I took and recovered it with a Vic Firth mallet recovering kit and synthetic fur. So this is a much softer. On this one, I find the yarn to be a little hard. So as you can see, it's a much bigger sort of puffball compared to the original one. And I have been using this more and more each time I play, simply because I feel, for me, it brings out more sound with less effort, and it also brings out a deeper, fuller sound. So I want to demonstrate that. And people talk about, this is a really big mallet, and yeah, you can use it if you really want to go at the gong and get a loud crash. But as I've said many times before, I rarely do that. That's not the style of playing I'm doing. Even in an improvised music setting, I'm just not like wailing at the gong. I'm looking for the subtleties. I'm looking for depth. I'm looking for tonality, musicality. I just don't want a big which is so cliche. So anyway, with this, I can play softly. And part of that is I'm not holding it here, where I'm going to get a big swing or a big wind up or something. I'm not doing this. You'll never see me do this sort of motion. With this mallet, I'm more in the center, between the head and the butt end here. And I'm doing more of a pendulum motion. And this is about all I swing it. I'm not winding up. And because there's a lot of weight and mass here, I can still get a loud sound without having to put arm and muscle into it. But I can also play very quietly. And this is one thing I don't think people always understand, is you can use any mallet to play quietly. You can't use any mallet to play loudly because you need to have the weight and the mass to get volume, to get loud. But let me just play some quiet things here. So the first strokes were very quiet. The second ones were a little bit louder, but all three of them were essentially the same. I tried to play with the same force on each one. Now, let's take a different mallet. Here's that concert bass drum roller. It's got a nice puff head on it, but it doesn't weigh anything. I mean, if this is over a pound, this is ounces. I mean, this is just nothing that's there. So I'm going to do the same thing, and I want you to listen for differences in the sound. So I tried to use the same force with each mallet. And even this one, I choked up on it. I'm not way back here. I'm not in the middle, but I'm a little further down so I can get a little more stroke on it. But hopefully you could hear, while they were about the same volume, this one didn't bring any depth out. There was no bottom end to the gong. So let's compare that. So here's the real lightweight one. Okay, now we'll use the heavier one. Granted, we're talking about subtlety here, but that's what this is about. You know, subtlety and clarity, and noticing the differences between different tools, different mallets. Now, let's try it over here on the earth gong. Here's the lightweight one. Here, I'll use the same hand. And now we'll use the heavier mallet. That was a little bit louder, I have to admit. But if you can hear it, there's much more depth to it. There's no depth there. You know, that's just going to bring in everything. It's going to open up the gong. Or this one. That there's no depth. So, you know, part of it is the right tool for the sound you want. If I want a very, very light sound with no bottom, no depth, I will use like a pair of these. So I can get a very light, soft sound. But if you listen, there's no bottom end. It's all top because there's not enough weight to get any depth from these. Okay, now let's get I don't have the other one of these covered, but I'll get something similar. This is, I would say it probably weighs about half, although it's as big, it probably weighs about half of what this is. But let's do this and listen for, I'll try not to play much louder, but listen to how there's depth, there's bottom end. I like heavier mallets because I want to get the depth out of the gong. So I tend to play with a bigger, heavier mallet. And as I did explain in the other video, I have big hands, so I have no trouble wielding a bigger, heavier mallet. And these are the things you need to look at for yourself. You know, find the optimum big mallet. What works for you? What can you handle to play both quietly and loudly with the same large mallet? The loud part's going to be easy. The quiet, it's all control. It's up to you and how you handle it. So, just a little clarification of that, because I had some questions that people asked me about it. So that's why I use really large mallets. This last subject I want to talk about came across on Facebook, and it's about ultrasound. So I want to read this paragraph that was on this post this person put up, and certainly open it up for discussion and your thoughts and feelings on it. And I will tell you my thoughts and feelings. It said, gongs also create ultrasound frequencies above our hearing range, so have a similar effect. Unfortunately, there was nothing preceding that, so a similar effect to what? I don't know. And then some sound healing science. What musical instrument did the ancient Egyptians use to vibrate the nasal cavities and create more nitric oxide in the blood? The sistra, sistrum, or sistrum is a type of rattle with metal discs that emits significant levels of healing ultrasound in the 40 to 60 kilohertz range. At the Festival of Opet, Sistrum instruments were used to stimulate the nostrils. Receive the sistra presented to your nostril that he may give rejuvenating breath, in quotes. A statement suggesting that the ancient Egyptians were aware that the sistra emitted a specific quality of sound that caused a rejuvenating effect on the sinus cavities, specifically the increased production of nitrous oxide. And I'll post a link that they put in with this. Okay, the sistra or sistrum is kind of like a forerunner of the tambourine. It was usually either a handheld, like a stick, or sometimes it might be longer, and there were little branches generally, and they had very similar to tambourine jingles on them. And you would shake it to rattle it, just like you were shaking a tambourine. So if we're looking at the idea that that creates ultrasound. Now ultrasound, very high, very small waves. Humans cannot hear that. Your dog, your cat, some other animal might be able to perceive those sounds. You know, those old dog whistles that you blow and you can't hear and your dog can hear it. Ultrasound. So the idea here is that this ultrasound stimulates us and helps create nitrous oxide, which goes into our bloodstream and makes us feel better and all this sort of thing. It's an interesting idea. Now, how does it apply to the gongs? I really can't see how that would work. I mean, if you're looking at little rattles, like a tambourine type rattle, it's going to make a very, very high-pitched sound and possibly produce some ultrasound in there. I don't know. I certainly couldn't hear it if I did it, and I do not have any measuring devices capable of measuring ultrasound. So there's that. But if, and this is my own opinion, coming from what I understand and know, if you were to use something like a Systrum, it would have to be like right here. You know, it's like I couldn't be playing this and somebody 20 feet away would get this effect, this supposed ultrasound effect, because it's just going to dissipate before it gets there. And I feel that's the same with the gongs. Let's say I was playing this Jupiter here and it was creating ultrasound and I'm standing up here playing it like this. I'm standing here. If there's some ultrasound, I may be able to perceive it, in my body, my sinus cavities, whatever. But those are really, small waves, and there's no amplifier here to boost them, to make them carry. So I seriously doubt they would carry very far. Now, if you think of ultrasound is used in healing in hospitals, and I've had ultrasound done on me for various injuries, using ultrasound to loosen blockages. Ultrasound is also used to break up kidney stones, and I believe they've been using it for clots and other sort of things. Don't quote me on that, I'm just doing it from memory, but ultrasound is used in the medical field. But it's a small, normally handheld unit placed directly on the person. There is some sort of an amplifier and creating and amplifying this sound and directing it. And the person using it can direct it wherever it needs to be. So this is direct contact with the human body. Breaking up a kidney stone, you can, shoot ultrasound and hopefully break it up, something like that. So that's one way ultrasound is used in the medical field today. Now, as far as gongs, if you have ultrasound, you're certainly not going to put a gong on the body because it's not going to ring. You can place a singing bowl on the body and strike it or make it sing. Possibly you might get some ultrasound and it's transferred into the person. But again, I don't think there's enough actual power there in any sort of ultrasound that might be coming from it. Again, if you look at in a hospital, and look this up, Google it, using ultrasound, they're able to put out a lot of power with an amplifier of some sort and direct this ultrasound. So it's very different than just, striking a gong and thinking, oh, there's ultrasound waves vibrating here and they're flying out there and they're gonna go into my sinus cavities and make me feel better because of the nitrous oxide released in my blood, or they're gonna do something to me. Oh, I'm gonna play this gong and it's gonna break up my kidney stone. I don't know. I really find that difficult as a concept with gongs. Look it up. I'll put a link down below. Check that out. See what it says. But I really think that's an important thing to look at because, people post things like this all the time. And if you find something like that and they don't give you a link, ask them, do you have a link for your source or for the original source? Or where did you find this? Can I have a link? If people cannot provide you with a link, then they probably just pulled it from somebody's blog or another Facebook post. They're just passing on useless information. But if they can send you a link, then you can go and take a look at hopefully the original source, find out what it's all about, and judge for yourself whether it's yay or nay. And if they don't provide a link, before you pass this sort of stuff on, Google it, look it up, take 10 minutes at least to see if you can find anything on it. Either the person mentioned in the links, if they mention a doctor, scientist, or anybody else, look them up. The type of effect and or research, look that up. And then, see if there's something valid there before you just go, oh, this sounds good. I am going to pass it on and put this meme up on my Facebook page. Far too many people just go, that sounds reasonable. That sounds really good. I'm going to pass it on. And all that does is a real disservice to all of us who are serious about playing gongs and bowls and bells and such, and trying to provide, however you want to describe it, healing, therapeutic, meditative, relaxing atmosphere for people. I'll let you choose how you want to describe what you do. By all means, you know, it's so easy to just take a few minutes to look it up. And then once you look it up, yes, you might have to spend 20 minutes or half an hour reading through some stuff, but verify these things. Don't just pass things along. I remember, I think it was last year, I called out somebody on, and they put up some stupid meme about sound and healing or frequency or something. And I called them on it, and I said, you know, this isn't right. And I even gave them links to somebody who had done the research and debunked what they posted. And they said, well, I liked it, so, you know, I posted it, and I'm just going to keep posting it anyway because I like what it says. Well, that's so irresponsible. And again, that reflects negatively back on us people who are trying our best to do, you know, some sort of good in the world, and to try to do things truthfully and faithfully, and not just do a lot of bullshit. There's so much bullshit out there about sound. I mean, frequency, all these 528 hertz, 428 hertz, 432 hertz, whatever. Magic frequencies cure everything, make us happy, give us money, and all that stuff. There's far too much of that being passed around Facebook and other places. So please, I implore you, when you come across something like that, before you decide to pass it on, do a little bit of research, do a little look up on the internet. The internet is so amazing. I mean, we have the world at our fingertips. Doesn't take much to find out if something is bullshit or if there might be something actually real behind it.